Welcome to Ripstop on the Record, the podcast for makers, by makers, where we talk about all things MYOG. Brought to you by Ripstop by the Roll. I think it's good, right?
Yeah, I think that was a good take.
Good morning, good afternoon,
Good evening.
Happy Chinese New Year to you all. Welcome to Ripstop on the Record. I'm Jameson.
And I am Carter.
Not Isaac.
Not this time.
What about next time?
We'll have to see.
Got it. Well, today's a fun episode. We're going to be talking about 6 unconventional items that you should use for MYOG. Maybe a few more. I don't know. I've had a couple floating around in my brain that I might add as honorable mentions. But we're going to get to that in just a minute. First, a few updates. As you remember from last episode, if you heard it, if you didn't, then congratulations. We've released 4 new materials in the last couple of weeks, and we're super stoked about them. I've made too many things out of the venom already. I've also made something out of the membrane, and I've used the other 2 materials as well. Carter, can you list out the items for the good people of the pod?
Yeah, and if you like listening to our podcast and you just happen to miss last episode, go listen to that for a little more in-depth review of the fabrics and how we made them and why we made them and all that. But basically, we have 210D Venom Gridstop Eco, which is a recycled nylon-based pack fabric that is really exciting. We have 0.9 ounce membrane 15 Eco Ripstop nylon, which is the only 15D recycled nylon that you can buy for DIYing, I believe, right now. So that's pretty exciting. We have a 4-way stretch power mesh, like a Lycra mesh that most of you have probably seen. Great for stuff like backpack pockets, and Jameson made some leggings out of them for himself that he's wearing right now.
See-through.
And finally, we just have a revamped product. We had a 3.4 ounce pocket mesh for quite a few years. It's just a no stretch, static pocket mesh with open holes that you can use for whatever you want. It now weighs 4 ounces, so it's a little bit more burly, but those are the 4 to look out for. And then a special 5th one is the ZPP kit has now been upgraded to include the new 210D Venom Gridstop. So go check those out. Reach out to us if you have any questions, and we hope you like what we've made.
If you are a business or if you have an account with Lance, then go check it out because we have kind of a B2B extended sale. We know that sometimes businesses need a bit more time to make decisions on their products than the DIYers do. So if you'd like to get your full rolls at a discount or get a free sample pack, then make sure you're on our email list and contact Lance for that. One other quick update, our maker meetup. If you didn't hear the last episode, this is new to you. We want to meet some of you and we want to hang out. That's kind of it. We're on February 22nd. We'll be meeting at Umstead State Park in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's an open invitation to makers and people that want to hang out with other makers, talk about gear, talk about sewing, talk about fabrics, and just kind of have a good time for a couple hours in the afternoon. More details will come out as we get closer, but we'll definitely be giving away some fabric, giving away some cordage, narrow goods. There'll probably be a couple raffle items. We just want to hang out. We want to talk about cool stuff that you've made, see some interesting things, and have a good time with other makers.
Yeah, and one of you will win an all-access pass to our general manager, Jason's house, and you get to stay there for the weekend, and you can do some martial arts training with him. He really likes doing stuff with his bow staff and his nunchaku. So
turns out he also has a free outdoor research hat to give somebody.
Yeah, he's got a large head, and it doesn't fit.
That's an inside joke that Jason will yell us for later. Lastly, please, if you like our episodes and if you like this podcast at all, let us know and let others know. You can do that by liking this. If you see it on Instagram, you can share this episode with other friends. But probably the most helpful thing you can do is give us a review. On whatever platform it is that you're listening, give us 5 stars or let people know how much you like this. It helps prioritize the show and let other people that are interested in the same things that you're interested find us. If they want to match hats like Carter and I here, then the best way to do this is probably review the show. Or if you really hate it, the best thing to do is probably to give it a 5-star review so other people can like it. Or if you want to sew but you want to have something to do, then you can review the show as well, and that makes you feel good about your sewing.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and now we'll get on with the episode. 6 or more unconventional items that you can use in your DIY projects.
All right, so on to the main part of the episode now. Carter, I'm going to start with a little bit of a backstory. It's going to help bring people in. Remember when we were at Presidential, that old office?
Yes, I do remember our old office.
Do you happen to remember a time when I came into the office with the trunk of my old Volkswagen Rabbit filled with.
Did you
Sorry,
just think it was fold?
I was.
This is what I have to work with here at this company.
The back
So,
of my trunk was filled with closed cell foam that somebody left on the side of the road.
yeah, closed cell foam would be in. That's probably it was. There was some open in there too. It was yes, I do remember that. It was like the cheap packaging foam stuff.
It's like Christmas for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
Cool. Well, that's kind of my intro because we're going to be talking about 6 unconventional items, including packaging foam that you may find on the side of the road that you should definitely use in your MYOG projects. Now, I want to first say I don't want to publicly condone like hoarding or holding on to too much stuff, but once you start to see the potential in some things with MYOGing, you will need to practice your organizational skills and your packing skills to keep your closet clean. Let's put it that way.
Yes, put it that way.
Okay. Number one thing that we're going to talk about today are rolls of paper. I started using this maybe 2 years ago. We kind of have an interesting situation here that we do a lot of dye sublimation printing, which includes a lot of paper. So a while ago when I was trying to work on a pattern of some sort, I just snagged a roll so that I could start practicing with it. And it's sort of it's absolutely become a staple for everything that I make now. We have this big roll. I have 2 different sizes. I have one that's probably 24 inches wide and then one that's like 5 feet. The 5 feet one I don't use that much. That's for only things like I made an apron or a couple aprons over the Christmas break, and then they were about 4 feet long and wider than 2 feet. But for everything else, I use a 24-inch paper. I've been using the same roll for 2 years. It's enormous. You don't need that much. But when it comes to patterning and fine-tuning designs, having paper nearby, especially ones that you can just roll out and kind of sketch up, it's truly transformed my projects. I think I've made way more complex things, made more intricate things, and better shaped things now that I've actually been working on patterning.
Yeah, it's just a simple thing that you can pick up probably at any paper supply store like a Staples or whatever, or Michael's, or I believe I saw online that you can also get it from like a Joann Fabric. They just have like wider format paper. Of course, you could just also Google like wide format thick paper and find a roll, and it'll maybe it costs $15 and it will last for a long time depending on how much you buy. But yeah, I think it's great to have around. I think people oftentimes only think of like computer paper because that's what everybody has.
Sure.
So then you have all these like 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper that you're taping together to try to make your pattern, or you're cutting open an Amazon box,
Yep.
which can work, but just having a nice big roll of paper that you can put your thoughts down on or prototype is a really nice thing that you might not think of.
Yeah. One tip that I would give people: think about the thickness or the weight of the paper that you want to use. The one that we have in here is a pretty thick density. I couldn't honestly tell you what the exact weight is, but I like it because what I've done is I've been able to transfer a lot of the patterns that I've been continually making into patterns that I've remade. I kind of have this basic fanny pack pattern that I hold on to whenever a friend or a family member really would like to have a fanny pack, or I'm trying to find them a Christmas present. I decide that a fanny pack is a good call for them. I've been able to make some of these things into patterns that I can recreate. So if you choose a thick enough paper or a heavy enough paper, then you can kind of turn it into a more semi-permanent pattern piece, which I really like. The other thing is that with the roll of paper versus just like sheets of paper, the roll kind of has an infinite length, and I really love that for patterning certain things as well. Like I've definitely rolled these out a couple feet and then kind of taped 2 pieces together for really big pattern pieces. And so it's still a size that can fit in a closet or fit in a big drawer fairly easily, like a 18 to 24 inch wide paper, but it's several hundred yards long, or at least a couple hundred yards. I guess I don't actually know. So it'll last you a really good long time, but having some pattern pieces you can hold into the future, especially if they're a thick enough weight, can be really helpful.
Oh yeah, so now you see what we're working with. Next up, we've got something that if you're a longtime DIYer or camper, you might know about this. When I first started getting into DIY before I was sewing, this is one of the first products that I used, and that's Reflectix, or it's the aluminized, however you say that,
Aluminumized.
metallic bubble wrap, basically. And you can find this at any hardware store, home improvement store.
You can even buy it on Amazon.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon as well. This is like really good for lots of things. What people usually use it for is like some sort of pot cozy or koozie, because you can buy the damn it, the metallic. Keep that in. the metallic tape that you use for like duct work. Oh, it's almost like it's called duct tape. Anyways,
Clever.
and you can use that instead of sewing and basically make a custom sized pot cozy or drink holder. You can also use this for anything that you want to insulate or add some padding to, and it's pretty inexpensive. But the bubble wrap pieces actually obviously hold air, so they insulate more than just the metallic coating. So really cool and useful thing. Also great if you're not ready to start sewing or you're not sure about it. You can make something for camping or otherwise and kind of get a feel for how flat objects become a three-dimensional thing, which is an important part of patterning. And yeah, it's pretty durable. Like I said, with that aluminum tape, you can just tape over any imperfections that you get, so it lasts a long time. But what have you made with it, James?
Honestly, I haven't made very much with Reflectix. Isaac was kind enough that when he left and went all GI Joe on us, he left his whole roll of Reflectix here, which was really nice because now I'm definitely planning a couple of coolers. I think I made 2 lunch boxes with Reflectix in the past, but I've used foam a lot because we haven't been carrying the Reflectix stuff. I never bought a roll. I actually didn't know how cheap it was until this week. I was looking it up to bring links in for the show, and like a 40-foot roll is like $15 or $12 or something. Like you can make a lot of stuff for pretty cheap.
Yeah, and every once in a while you come across. I'm just answering this question because I know it will be asked. Why don't we carry that? Maybe we will one day, but as Jameson just said, it's so widely available that it's possible that we're not going to be able to compete on price. So I'd much rather people just be able to get it for the cheapest price so that they can make what they want.
In theory, if we were to carry it, we might have to charge $19. Where if you could get on Amazon for 14, then why would we try to compete with that?
Right. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want people to use their money as they can. But I'm not saying we'll never. If everybody responds after this podcast and says, "Please carry it," I promise we will carry it.
Yeah. I remembered one. I did make a pretty interesting cooler last March. Remember it? It's like a orange and green topo pattern.
Yeah.
It's a sweet cooler. I made that with Reflectix. That was printed DCF on the outside with the old 210D HDPE grid stop orange on the inside, because the main print pattern is like a hunter green with orange topo lines. So the orange was a really nice accent. That was kind of a fun project, and that cooler does work great. I kind of botched the handles. I didn't stitch those in properly, so I kind of had to do some seam ripping, some taping, and correcting on that. But yeah, the Reflectix is great. I gave somebody a cooler, like a friend of ours, a cooler lunchbox thing, maybe 2 years ago that had Reflectix in it, and she keeps it like in her car in the summer in North Carolina. She like keeps cool drinks under the seat in there, and she said it works really great. I haven't tested it myself. You're not going to leave it in there for 2 days in the North Carolina summer, but if you're gone for a couple hours on a hike and you want a cold drink when you get back, it can kind of work for that. So I've been fairly impressed with it based on what I've heard.
Yeah, and I'm so along that line with insulation and padding. This one's not as unconventional because it's a product that we sell, and you know what foam is used for. However, I do think that it's underutilized, which is where it can get unconventional in terms of like us trying to inspire you to use some creativity. So everybody knows that for backpack straps and you know hip belts that you put foam in there, right? That's like what people buy it for and use it for. But there are a lot of cottage made and even like stuff that you might find in REI or other places that are utilizing foam or something similar in different ways. So this is like camera cases, any type of electronics case. Coolers also use foam, so you could even do like a layer of Reflectix and foam. What else is foam? Foam's used also like on backpacks, like back supports as in lieu or in combination of or with a frame. Jameson uses it a lot for, and lots of companies do this for bike bags to either add structure or to make it so all your little jingle jangles aren't jingle jangling around.
I've used foam a couple different times recently in projects, and 2 things that I've noticed about it, because I've used 3 different types of foam. I've used our XLPE foam that like we carry. I used maybe a test version that we got of it that was maybe half as thick, and then I used like a cheap foam, probably the one that I took from the side of the road a while ago.
Probably.
I used all 3 of those recently, and so a couple things that I noticed about it. One, first of all, our XLPE foam is really good. That is my go-to. I try not to use it too much, or else I would probably, there wouldn't be any left for people to buy. But I really like messing with the thickness. So, for example, on the ski pack that I recently made, that's the kind of white printed topo mount hood one that you've seen on Instagram most likely. That back panel, there's two different types of foam used. I used our main XLPE foam for the back panel, and then I made kind of this hidden pocket under the spacer mesh. And where that spacer mesh is, there's a thinner foam in there. I added that foam piece because I didn't want to feel the zipper slider pulls that are in place or in line for that hidden pocket. So messing with the foam thicknesses is kind of nice depending on where you're layering the foam into your project, because it'll help add some stability, some comfort, some padding without always adding a ton of bulk, because that's kind of the concern with the foam. It's going to add bulk, it's going to add weight. So you do want to be aware of that.
Another thing that you can use foam for is the same thing that you can use Reflectix for, which is as a pot cozy. So depending on the density and the thickness of the foam, it can be a great something to keep your beverage cold or warm. You could also make a foam shirt, but you might look like a dumbass. I don't know.
That sounds horribly
Some people would do it.
uncomfortable.
I'm just saying,
Who would
creative,
do that?
unconventional people. That's what we're talking about here.
I see.
But yeah, foam's awesome. And like Jameson said, we have a very specific type of foam that's, let's just call it high end. You can certainly find and source foam from different leftover packaging and other stuff like that, so that you can be sustainable in what you're making and kind of mess around with different densities, thicknesses, and plastics.
So
if you will.
I'm not going to say I'm necessarily proud of this, but I like where my head was going. And so something I've done on some packs, not recently. This is not something I've been doing the last probably year or so, but I definitely have taped foam to plastic to create like this hybrid back panel approach for backpacks specifically, so that it's like has some rigidity but also like the cushion of foam. Can you think of a better way to do that, or like a more would you just get thicker foam so it was more rigid and squishy? Because I feel like the weight of tape and plastic and foam is kind of ridiculous. Not to mention your whole frame sheet's held together by tape. Then that's kind of sketchy.
I mean, I would probably just make the sleeve that where you're putting the sheet of foam and the sheet of plastic able to fit both, and then I would just put them in there independently. They're not gonna
Not connect. That makes sense.
they
Yeah.
don't have to be together. Or like you could put a few if you wanted it to be solid, you could just put about 6 drops of super glue on the corners and in the center, and not use tape or anything like
That's
that.
a good idea too.
Or you could punch holes in both and tie strings through it, but that would be ridiculous. Yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, work with foam. I think a lot of you would be surprised with how much your machine can handle, especially something like XLPE foam or a thinner version. Even home machines won't struggle a lot with. It's not really a matter of power that your machine would have. Mainly, probably thickness is going to be a bigger issue, like fitting stuff through the pressure foot and the throat plate. But foam is a needle has no problem going through foam, so you really don't need to worry about your machine breaking or having too many issues. Do some practice stitches as always, dial it in. But like if you have a home machine, you don't need to steer clear of everything foam related.
Well, and for the most part, foam is going to be placed into spots where there's fabric around it. So, like for instance, if you're making this isn't a real thing, but it's kind of like a bike bag. Let's just say you're making a cube, right? You would make the individual pieces of the cube, put the foam in, and then seal it up basically like a pillow, and then sew the seam allowances together to make the cube. You wouldn't just sew through the foam like 12 times, because that would
absolutely.
be the universe would explode.
Yeah.
So for the most part, you don't actually even have to sew the foam, so any machine will be fine with it.
I'm glad you mentioned the bike bags, because that's something that I forgot with the first couple of bike bags I made. Foam is great for insulation, like temperature insulation, great for padding, great for structure. But in the case of a bike bag, it provides the structure piece and padding, but it also provides actually a lot of noise reduction. Imagine this: you strap a bag to a bike frame. Your bike frame's most likely aluminum, steel, carbon fiber. Maybe if you're wealthy, you got titanium. Those materials, when you take something that's metal, like a hand pump or whatever you throw in your bike bag, it makes a lot of noise. So for me, I have like a hand pump that I strap to the top of my bag. So then it's just these two aluminum things just smacking each other over gravel roads or whatever. It creates a lot of noise. So I say all of that. What?
Robots in a domestic dispute. Two aluminum things smacking each other. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah. So the foam provides a lot of structure. it keeps the bag looking nice, and it keeps it easier to get in and out of, honestly, because it keeps the bag kind of nice and taut. But also, I noticed that my rides were quieter and kind of less just useless noise when my bike light battery and my hand pump weren't just smacking the frame. So it can also reduce noise, which is great in certain situations. I kind of just mentioned the plastic piece, so I want to talk about our next piece here, which is cutting board or flexible plastic. Cutting board, I think you said this yesterday, and we were talking about the blog. By the way, there's a blog post if you want to read about some of these things. If you want to find direct links, we'll link them in the blog post as well. But a basic flexible cutting board is so helpful because they're virtually everywhere. I mean, I got my first ones at TJ Maxx. You can get them at the Dollar Tree, Amazon. They're cheap. They're super accessible. What have you made with flexible cutting board?
Pretty much like the same things that we already mentioned. I've tried to use it for, I say tried because the project didn't turn out well, not because it can't be used for this, but like as a frame sheet in a backpack. I've used it as the base for a duffel bag because that's something that oftentimes you get with a duffel bag is like a hard insert to give it shape so it doesn't like taco.
Yeah.
I've used it in bike bags to reinforce the sides. What else? I made a really nice steak
What?
with a cutting board.
I see.
Sorry, that was horrific, and I apologize.
Have you ever used Kydex before?
In the sense that I've owned Kydex, I haven't like formed Kydex because I don't have time for that.
What would that take? Because I've always been really interested in creating like a frame sheet or a back panel with Kydex.
Well, you have to make a form, and then you have to use the form. I think with heat and pressure, um, to like make it into the shape. It's like molding plastic.
Would a like a heat gun do the trick, or do you need something more consistent than that?
I don't know, honestly. I'm sure it's a simple
Sure.
Google. You could do it. I just can't remember. I can vaguely remember whenever I was more into knives and stuff like that, watching people use like DIY Kydex forms where they have like a brick and two flat pieces of something, and they like make a clamshell and they clamp it down. But I can't remember how exactly they made it form. But I'm assuming it's heat and pressure, and of course you need a shape to shape it with.
There's sort of two things that I really want to do in the DIY sphere. One day, I don't really know when I'll make them happen, but I do want to shape Kydex, and I also really would like to dye something. We talked about this in the episode with Mark Shadowlow. I really want to dye the 500D Cordura Alpine or the multicam white. I don't know, I just feel like it'd be cool to do a red dye experiment with that material.
Do it.
Can you help me?
No, I don't want. It's so messy to dye stuff.
I
I've
knew you
done
were
it
gonna say
before.
that.
Justin, our customer service and graphic design person that we love,
Extraordinaire.
back in the day, he used to dye. There's an actually probably I think there's an article and a project in the help center, multiple projects where he had dyed Hyper D and maybe a few other materials and did like full tie dye, and that was really really cool. But it was messy and took a lot of time, which doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means I probably won't do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but it does look really sweet.
Another one I was thinking about doing was dyeing the DWR
Slowly.
melange. We have the non-coated melange still. Some of that, I feel like dyeing that would be pretty neat.
Well, you won't be able to do that, but
It would take some color, right?
kind of.
But it'd be really faint.
Yeah. Well, the UHMWPE probably won't take any color at all.
Yeah.
Which I think it's like almost, is it 70% UHMWPE or 30? I can't remember.
So the color would be real faint.
Well, if you look at our the dye sub melange that we do, it's like a heathered appearance.
Yeah.
But of course, dye sub is like the optimal for the polyester that's in there.
Sure.
I don't know how well a RIT dye would do, which is the synthetic dye that you would use. But who cares? Do it.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. That was kind of my hesitation. I'm like, oh well. But in your case, you can probably find a scrap in the scrap yard.
Right. Well, RIT dye or just dyeing in general wasn't one of our unconventional items, so we can make that an honorable mention of this podcast. That I think dyeing does have a cool place in some of the stuff. We've had some people, like Matt's tried some dyeing. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and
Matt from Red Paw.
I can't remember who said it. I think it's Shakespeare, but everybody dies, but not everybody lives.
Yes.
So that's good.
The great philosopher.
If we start a synthetic dye company, that will be our tagline.
Everybody dies, but everybody lives.
Yeah, but it will be DYES, of course.
It would probably need to say everybody lives when everybody dies with the DYES.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Some people die. All of us live.
Oh my god. Okay.
All right.
Whatever.
Anyways,
Next up,
dye is cool. Check it out.
Yes.
Send us your projects and tell us how that worked for you, because I am interested to see that, because it's not something that we do in the office on a regular workday. So
These next two are two of my favorites. I would like to take some credit for this one because I've never seen anybody else do it. I'm sure they have. Just
I've done it.
basically, Carter and Isaac haven't done it that I saw.
I've done it.
Well, you did it
Which
probably
thing are you talking about?
8 years ago. Pallet banding.
Oh yeah. So some of my original dry bags and stuff use this. Also, my two friends, maybe three, but definitely two of them. Shout out to them. My friend Joe Pyle, Detail Man, and my friend Jeremy, Brother Bones, Fire in My Bones. They both on the packs that they've made use some form. I don't know if it was from a pallet, but some form of like thin plastic. But anyways, I'm not going to steal your thunder because you've definitely done the most experimentation with pallets.
Yeah. Okay. So hear me out. We get a lot of freight shipments here, pallets and pallets of fabrics and boxes and equipment and random stuff. One day I was down in the warehouse and I don't remember what I was doing now. No recollection. More or less, I saw pallet banding just sitting there and I had a project in mind and I realized that this would be perfect. So if you can't already picture what this is, when you get a freight shipment, it's a big wooden pallet with something stacked up on top and then there's maybe about 3/4 inch to 1 inch plastic bands that go all the way around the pallet and the materials to hold it all onto the pallet. That's what I'm talking about, the pallet banding here. The reason I love this stuff is that it's pre-cut more or less for me, the perfect shape so far for just the right amount of rigidity or stiffness on pockets and on little projects. So examples of how I've used it so far. I made some sunglasses or sunglass cases.
Sunglasses would be hilarious.
Sunglass cases with this, where it's kind of two strips of Polar Tech fleece that I serged up the side, and then I put the pallet banding on the kind of under the top hem, so there was some rigidity. So when you kind of squeeze the glass case together, then it opens up.
Yeah, it's like a coin purse.
Yeah, that's kind of style.
You can also use like the slap bracelets.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep.
Very similar. That obviously has some memory to it, but when you cut it into strips, you can do the same. This is, if you didn't know what type of material we're talking about, this is kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like you take a flexible cutting board and you cut it down to 3/4 inch strips, maybe actually a little bit thicker. But the thing that I most recently did with pallet banding, just yesterday, is I was making a friend a fanny pack. For the record, I cracked the code on how to make a Kindle compatible fanny pack that wasn't too big. If anybody wants to know, let me know. I know, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, you talked about that already, dude.
Just saying.
We know you're proud. No, it is really cool.
But I've added pallet banding into the top of the pockets in a fanny pack. I started doing that for mine because whenever I carry a fanny pack, I like to put my knife and flashlight in there as well. If I have a fanny pack, then I might as well just kind of clear my pockets out, and that makes it a little bit easier to take the knife in and out, because I was trying to hook it onto the ultralight stretch mesh, which stretches obviously. So with the pallet banding in there, it makes a nice, like, really firm, kind of rigid pocket edge to clip it onto. But I've started doing that because it's also just really easy to grab and hold onto, kind of organize through your fanny pack. So I really liked adding it to the edge of pockets. I think that's been pretty sweet. I haven't actually added to stuff sacks yet, but I really like that idea. I've tried it with CSM polyester once, which worked out great, but it's so heavy that I do think the pallet banding would be a really good addition.
Yeah, you see this a lot on a lot of the commercial dry bags. They have a stiffener in one side of the dry bag that's normally some sort of strip of plastic or of heavy webbing, and it's really useful. Instead of using snaps like a lot of companies use now, you can it'll open up easier, and you'll have a way to like close the bag easier if you use a stiffener like that. Mm-hmm. I think Superior Wilderness Designs uses a very, very like similar strip of plastic in their roll top of their backpacks.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've used pallet banding for anything else.
I did. I've made a couple hampers with it, actually, like clothing hampers. So EPX 400 white. I made a big, I don't know, it's probably 2.5 feet tall, 18 inches around, circle base. But I put kind of 4 spines up the side. There's little sleeves that I can just slide them into. It provides just enough stability that if you have a couple clothes in the bottom, then the top stays open, kind of a nice shaped circle. But it's kind of flexible. And, if you accidentally stub your toe on it, then you don't rip your foot off.
Another way that you could use this, first off, be as creative as you want. Like for all of these, if you happen to decide to find some foam on the side of the road, please show us what you do with it. But I've seen people before take small strips of plastic and put it on all 4 corners of a hip belt pocket, because it stabilizes the corner so that you can open it with one hand.
That's
because otherwise, you have to hold one side of the pocket and then pull it open, or you won't be able to move the zipper. So you can add structure that way on something with a zipper that you want to be able to open with one hand, or you just want it to like stay open easier. But
yeah,
pallet banding Who would have thunk it?
It's also really easy to get. I mean, there's warehouses everywhere that throw hundreds of pounds of pallet banding away every single day. Like you can go find it pretty much everywhere.
It's probably, you can also buy it because,
That too.
yeah, like for us, we also, I don't,
No,
should
just go dumpster
I
diving.
should not tell you this, but we do our own pallet banding,
Oh yeah,
for the stuff that we ship out.
sure.
And there are rolls of it down there beside the pallet bander.
I don't need to go raid our pallet bander. Do you know how much I have from just
Yeah,
pulling
I
it
was
off?
just saying, if you didn't want to try to like find,
clean it off.
yeah, and you have some good ideas for dry bags, you could just
Yeah.
buy some of this.
That too. Yes.
I'm sure it's inexpensive.
Okay, next one, magnets. We've talked about magnets some, but possibly one of my favorite projects of all time incorporated magnets. If you haven't heard about these already, I made some. I
Have you
think
heard about magnets
no,
already?
not this
Oh.
project, not magnets.
Oh, if you haven't heard about magnets already, your life will be cut short most likely because you're not paying attention.
Yeah, so I made window covers. That's the project I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
those are awesome.
Long story short, you slide this piece over the window that has foam on behind the window, in front of the window, then it has sill poly in front of that. There are magnets that kind of line the edge so it attaches to the car. The goal is that bugs can't fly in, but you can get total airflow. And then there's kind of this rain awning, and where the magnets come in is not only along the bottom on the mesh so that bugs can't fly in, but also I've shaped the rain awning piece so that you can pitch it out with a stick. And
It's
then
a strut.
a strut, yeah, and then there's a magnet that attaches down to the car to keep the strut, to keep it taut. If without the magnet attaching down to the car, it kind of acts like a guy line. Without that, then the kind of strut pokes up, and then you're susceptible to rain. But it's all totally magnets, and it's really cool. It still makes me happy. I made those like 2 years ago now. So I was a good maker, but every year I get better. Those I'm still really proud of because they're also really hard to make.
Yeah, I mean, magnets definitely are the most open-ended of all of these. Most of these kind of have, Reflectix is going to be used for things.
Insulation. Yeah.
Right. Magnets you can use for like so much stuff that I don't even know about, from clothing closures and stuff like that to you see a lot of tent companies now making their door tiebacks that used to be like a cord lock or just a piece of ribbon that you would tie. They're making those magnetic with a strip of like DCF or whatever material, which is a really nice use. So lots of small uses like that, where if you sit down and really think about, if you're not afraid to do it or you can practice, you're like, yeah, like instead of using this cord lock to close this pocket on my backpack, I could just put a magnet here and then it can like auto close. So lots of possibilities there. Also tons of availability for magnets. You can find every single size of magnet that you could ever dream of in square, circles, metric, standard, different like strengths of magnetism, all that. So if you have a spot where you're working on a project or thinking about something and you think you might want to use a magnet, you can definitely find the right size. Also, lots of companies are starting to make things like magnetic zipper and other stuff, which I know is not what we're talking about, but you can think about it in that way. Like, oh, well, if I could use a zipper here, could I use a series of magnets that overlap? So I think they're really cool. And I think there's lots of possibility to make things cleaner or easier to use.
I just remember another thing that I made with magnets. There's a cool car camping company whose name I'm forgetting. I'll look it up while we're talking here. But I saw this idea from them and I kind of ripped it off. For car camping, they made a bag that attaches via magnets to the side of your car. So I think they have like a shoe bag. So when you get in your car to go to sleep, you can put your shoes in there. It's waterproof, but it has like a mesh bottom. That was pretty neat. You need pretty strong magnets because you got to go through this heavy bag that's going to attach to your car, but that was pretty sweet. The thing I think I've used magnets for the most are just around the shop. We've talked about this a ton of times, but I just got magnets with adhesive on the back just the other day because I want to attach all of our lighters and thread snips via magnets, like kind of to the machine. I always leave my lighter and my thread snips kind of in the way, frankly. So I'm going to attach a magnet to those so they kind of stay up on the machine and not in my working area. We have kind of magnet strip bars at every machine that hold scissors, thread snips, lighter, stuff like that around every machine. We've got a magnet strip on the side of the work table. We use magnets all the time just because it helps keep things away without having to, like a pegboard, to slide things in and out and whatnot. The other thing I did with magnets recently is I made a cycling vest that I already talked about. The top collar piece, kind of right at the neck, that's a magnetic closure instead of like a button because it zips up, like the vest zips up to about the bottom of the neck, or kind of like where your collarbones come together. And then the last 2 inches are just held together by magnets, which is kind of neat because then you can just flick them open, or you can just, instead of having to like worry about a button when you're writing, you can just kind of pinch them together with your fingers.
Do
and
not use if you have a pacemaker.
yeah, it's true. Be careful.
Just kidding. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how pacemakers work, but I feel like magnets shouldn't be around those.
Probably not. I have no idea, honestly.
Yeah, I think this is the one that I'm most interested in seeing what people that are more creative than me can make. Anytime there's a cool magnet thing that has to do with DIY, and I see it on Instagram, I'm always like, dude, that is so smart. Why did I not think of that?
Yeah.
And also, magnets are used a ton in 3D printing, which is something I'm semi interested in, and that's another. I guess that's DIY as well, where you can think about making different size cases or whatever, and they have magnetic closures. And you can print the exact size of the magnet that you're looking for and just drop it in there. So magnets, use them.
That bag I was just talking about, it's called the Gear and Shoe Storage Bag by company Luno, Luno. If you want to go check it out, we'll link it in the description. I ripped off that idea. It was pretty easy to make, and it's pretty awesome. They make some other cool stuff as well, but that bag's nice.
Well, if you didn't, now you know about them.
God, you're on a tear today.
I'm unconventional.
Yes, the next unconventional item, maybe the last one on the list. I've got a few more that have been floating around my brain, but last one on the list, the official, is bike inner tubes.
Yes. This is, if you are a cyclist or mountain biker, you know about this because it's pretty common. But for people that don't know about this, inner tubes or like rubber or something like that have a ton of uses, and they can be sustainable to use, and they're very inexpensive to buy. So you can use inner tubes for any place where you want to protect from abrasion, or you want to add some extra durability or some grip. So if you're making a pouch to, I don't know, go on a flagpole or something, you can line your strap system that you're using to mount something to a pole or to a tree or whatever with a little bit of bike inner tube, and that will give it like way more grip and holding power than if not, and it's just super inexpensive. Obviously, Jameson will talk about the uses for bikes outside of inflating your tires. So
it's a big one. Yeah, I mean, I put it on my straps for my bike bag to protect from scratching the paint off of my bike. So when I made my frame bags, I attached the Velcro kind of to the zipper gussets of the bag, and then before I attached the Velcro in there, I basted inner tube. I cut it down to the exact size of the Velcro, basted the inner tube to the Velcro piece. I found that it protects my frame more. It adds a little bit of weight, but that type of weight on a bike bag I don't really care about. I'd rather just have my frame look good. So I've done that a lot. I've added it to pieces to protect from other straps on there. For example, I've cut inner tube bits, like left them in the circle, but I just cut different pieces off to put on rhino straps and stuff like that for like roof racks and whatnot. That's not exactly a sewing or DIY application, but I've used them to protect from scratching paint off my bike, my car, and other things. They're kind of good for that. They're shockingly durable. Even when they've been used for a while, they kind of smell weird. You want to clean them out a little bit, but the inner tubes just smell weird after a while. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
I was thinking of some jokes, but I'll keep it for myself.
But yeah, it's surprisingly durable, has pretty good stitch retention. I wouldn't stitch just through inner tube, but I was surprised at that as well. Just clean all the kind of like powder off on the inside, or it'll smell like your bags look weird.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you had a few. So first off, that's our official list. There are definitely more.
I also realized that was 7. We said 6 the whole time. That was actually 7 things.
Yeah, well, you were on a roll there for a bit, so I just kind of let you do it because, I mean, this is fun to talk about. And if you're listening this far, then you also care about unconventional DIY stuff. So I've already asked you to like show us pictures of every single thing, audience, but if you also have some unconventional DIY materials or techniques that you use, please let us know. And if the best one that we get, we'll shout you out next time. Someone will have to remind me that I said that, but
if you tag us or send us any photos of unconventional things that you've used, we will talk about you next episodes. If you'd like that, let us know. If you don't want to be talked about, then you should still send it to us. We just won't mention you specifically, but I want to see it.
Send it and then say, don't talk about me.
Yeah, exactly. Anonymous. All right. A couple other honorable mentions that I do want to talk about. 1, shower curtain. Sounds real unconventional, but I just hung it up this week. I'm really stoked. Shout out to Matt.
Shower curtain rod, to be clear.
Sorry, shower curtain rod. Yeah.
I immediately imagine like Dexter when he puts all the plastic down. Yeah.
Shower
curtain rod.
Shower curtain rod. This is a shout out to Matt and Dan. They gave me this idea. But that's how I'm hanging all of our large pattern pieces now. We have 2 very expensive metal storage drawers that help keep patterns flat. they're just not quite big enough for things like the Alpha Camp pants or the Alpha Raglan hoodie or some of these larger pattern pieces. They don't go as well in a drawer. The fanny packs, the backpacks, those things fit really well. But for larger pattern pieces, like my apron pattern piece now, I'm hanging those up on a shower curtain rod. I got some hooks that have kind of a hook on one side and a clip on the other with a rubber tip. So I'm pinching all of the pattern pieces together and then hanging it up there. Other people have suggestions, like Matt uses shower rings to kind of, he punches holes in all the pattern pieces and hangs them up that way so they stay together. There's a lot of different ways. I don't know. I'm not qualified yet to say which way is the best way to hang them, but the shower curtain rod, I think it looks great on the wall. It looks very maker centric, but it's really nice to have those pattern pieces hanging up kind of flat and not getting curled up in the drawer now. So that's one. Not to mention, Carter and I had a good time trying to hang that.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Two, I like to stay organized and I like to keep my workspace organized. So in the makerspace, we have a large drafting table that's 12 feet by 6 feet. And I kind of work out of one corner of it. I have two cutting mats next to each other. But you have tools. You need your markers, pens, scissors, rotary cutters, things like that. And those were just kind of always laying around. We have a magnet strip, but it's on the other side of the table, and I couldn't bring that over because it was attached to the table. So what I did is I got some extra little like bins and cups things that I had laying around. So I have one kind of cardboard box, or not cardboard, it's a wooden box rather, that keeps all my Wonder Clips and my fabric weights. So those are easy because the Wonder Clips especially just kind of float all over the table and you end up stepping on them and breaking them. And I wanted to keep them contained. So I have this one like wooden, just little organizer box from Walmart that I put all my Wonder Clips and my fabric weights in. And then I have two other cups or two cups. One, like the taller one, holds the scissors and rotary cutter and the tall bits, and then the shorter one holds my chalk and my lighter and stuff like that. And I really like having a place to always go back to put my stuff into, so it doesn't get lost under all the fabrics. I think we all know what it's like when you're working on a project and you have scraps and you have the pattern pieces and you have the paper and you have all these things laying out. After 5 minutes, you're like, I don't know where my scissors are. I don't have any scissors. I've never had scissors. In fact, none of my tools have ever existed. Having a place to go back and put them is really nice. And that's as simple as just like, using a plastic cup that you have laying around.
Yeah, so in this case, not at all unconventional to use storage boxes for storage, but unconventional in the sense that you don't have to look at storage boxes or like a container that, I don't know, your frying knife came in and just like throwing that away. Look at it and see, oh, I could actually use this upstairs in my sewing room to hold my Wonder Clip. So again, sometimes the unconventionality.
Sure.
I'm making up lots of words today. The disconvention, whatever. The strangeness of and usefulness of the product for DIY might actually be your creativity, not necessarily the item.
Yeah.
So stay frosty
Yeah.
when you're out there making.
Yeah. I can't think of any others right now. So I think that's the end of my list. You got any others that you use?
I'm sure I do. I've tried to think of them obviously to prepare, but I think for the most part, like I said, the most unconventional thing that I have is myself. So I'm very strange, and that can be helpful to just keep an open mind whenever you're making stuff.
Good tie-in.
To
That
not
was impressive.
to not just take things as they are, right? Like pallet banding. You just look at that and you're like, oh, that's trash or that's recycling. But if you take a second to think through it, you might find, oh, I just like made the best roll top dry bag ever, and it's just as good as the one in the store or better. Yeah, that's all I got.
Cool. Well, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking it out with us. We have some fun episodes coming up. I'm really excited about some of the things that we're working on. Just with the start of the new year, we've had a couple internal episodes, and I hope you enjoyed listening to Carter and I talk. Probably too much, but we're going to get back to having some really fun guests on very soon. As always, if you like this episode, please let us know. Shoot us a message. Give us some fan mail. Let us know what you think, or if you have any other unconventional items. If you want to win that competition to go hang out with Jason for the weekend, also let us know that as well. He'll be thrilled when he hears this for the first time listening to it next week. As always, thank you. Talk to you soon.